Okay.
Anil ji, Raut ji, please start your camera. Ganesh Adhikari ji, Rabia, Shelly, please start your camera. Ganesh Adhikari and Shelly Sprenso Codizia Sinzon, please switch on your camera. You can just switch on your camera. Later on, you can off it when the session will start with the Dr. Kumar. All right. So, as you know that I think today will be last day of this session, right? Or maybe we have extension because there was a gap yesterday. We'll see that what Dr. Parmar say. And all of you know that R3 is starting on Monday, right? It is starting Monday 7 to 9 p.m. So I think a few registration came from your this batch. So I kindly request all of you who want to join, please register yourself quickly. Otherwise, it might be that problem, because that program is totally closed group. It is not open groups where anybody can join. So that program is only for the closed group who will be paid. So we are not making a big group there in R3. R3 will be very much specific to the couple of people who will be focused on the advanced then. It needs a very strong, I mean that even you will be have to work hard on that. It won't be like R1 or R2 because there will be lots of assignment exchange, lots of homework also you will get. So that if you want to join the R3, make sure that by by I will say by tomorrow, register yourself, do the payment, and fix your that get your seat confirmed. All right. Uh, Next week we are starting with R2 again, because there was lots of people who was looking for R2 from the different batches. So if you guys want to rejoin, you can join it free of cost in R2, and you can recommend other also, those whom you know that they have done R1 or have basic knowledge of R. Okay. So Parmar sir, you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We can start, sir. We can start.
Okay, okay, sir. Thank you. Just a moment. How many persons are there? I think it is 718 now. I think few may more join. We little wait.
Yes, sir. They join little bit late. They will
Yeah,
join.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we 2 minutes more we wait. Okay.
Or we can start the session, sir. They will join slowly.
Okay.
They
Okay.
normally join after 7:30 because they have offices, so they will join.
Mhm. Am I audible to all? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So today we are going to start inferential analysis part. Okay. We have finished data preparation in the previous session, day before yesterday, and today we start with inferential analysis. Okay. Just a moment. Just a moment. I just select the file there. Okay. Okay, let me share my screen with you. My screen is visible now to you. Okay. And here we start the inferential analysis today. We have covered descriptive analysis in the R1 and R1. In the R second, we have studied the data visualization, then data preparation. And this is our last topic, which is the statistical inferences and inferential analysis, we could say. And this statistical inference is the process of using data analysis to deduce properties of an underlying distribution of the probabilities. So, inferential statistical analysis infers properties of a population, for example, by testing of hypotheses and driving estimates. Okay. It is assumed that the observed data set is sampled from a larger population. And we assume it first. So it is from a larger population we have taken this sample. Inferential statistics can be contrasted with descriptive statistics. Descriptive statistics is solely concerned with properties of the observed data, as I explained to you what is we have. And it does not rest on the assumption that the data came from a larger population or not. In the machine learning also we use the term inference is sometimes used instead of mean make a prediction. By evaluating already trained model, we use sometime inference. And in this context, deducing properties of the model is referred as to training or learning rather than inference. And using a model for prediction is referred to as inference instead of prediction. So we will see also our predictive inference here. So first we see the basic concept. We just concentrate not on the prediction inference. We concentrate on the statistical inference for the hypothesis testing. So first we see what is hypothesis, and we see here the two kinds of hypothesis we have. One is the research hypothesis, second is the statistical hypothesis. Research hypothesis is just a statement, okay, about you think will be the outcome of the research, okay. And research, if we see that the consumption of a sugar makes children more active or hyperactive, it is just our one statement or the assumption, and we think that it outcomes, we think the outcome of the research. We don't have any data, it is only our perception. Just like another statement I have written, the phonics is better for teaching reading than is a whole language. So that is also a statement. Okay, we don't have any evidence and any data related to that by which we could prove it. These are the statements concerning expected outcomes, and this sort of hypothesis is called the research hypothesis. Second kind of hypothesis is called the statistical hypothesis. And statistical hypotheses are probabilistic mathematical statements concerning population values stated in terms of parameters used in the research. So these statistical hypotheses probabilistic mathematical statements concerning population values stated in terms of the parameters used in the research. So we see this, we use the data here, okay. uh, from the we take a sample from population, you know, or we use some parameters of the population if we have, and sometimes we use the statistics and we calculate it. Now I tell you about the statistical hypothesis. It is a conjecture or the assumption about a population parameter, or in other words, a statement about unknown population parameter. Otherwise, we may know the population parameter or we don't know the population parameter. So this conjecture may or may not be true. Whatever the our assumption may be true or may not be true. Nobody knows about the what is true. In statistics, we could measure anything except truth. We could not measure the truth. We could not say whatever the assumption we have and we apply the statistical hypothesis over there and we compute and we see, we use some test, and when we get the result of the test would be always give us the result, the reject and the accept of the null hypothesis, acceptance of the null hypothesis, or the rejection of the null hypothesis, or the alternate hypothesis, whatever. So it's only the acceptance and the rejection. It is not the true and false. Okay. As you see, the judge always says guilty or not guilty. He don't say that the person is murderer or he is a rapist or he is a thief. Guilty or not guilty, with reference to the evidence. So same way is here. We could not say our conjecture is true or false. We say it is accepted or rejected in the hypothesis. Okay. Major methods for making a statistical inference about a population. One is the traditional method. Second is the confidence interval method. Third is the p-value method. So we will discuss the confidence interval and the p-value method later on when we do the practical things. By the p-value, we find out whether our null hypothesis is accepted or rejected. In default, we have two confidence level. One is 95% confidence level, and second is 99% confidence level. We could take some other confidence level also. But generally in default, we use the 95 and the 99%. When you have the 95% confidence level, it means your level of significance is 5%. if you have the confidence level 99%, then your level of significance is 1%. Okay. So in the confidence level, if the value comes in confidence level, confidence interval, sorry. So your null hypothesis has been accepted. It comes between your confidence interval. If it outside your confidence interval, whatever the test value, then your null hypothesis has been rejected. Okay. For the p-value, if we are using the 95% confidence level, it means our level of significance is 5%, means 0.05. So if the p-value is greater than 0.05, then our null hypothesis has been accepted. And if our p-value is less than 0.05, then our null hypothesis has been rejected. Okay, it is the p-value consideration. We could use either the confidence interval or the p-value. The main goal in many research studies is to check whether the data collected supports certain statements or prediction. Whatever the data you have collected, it supports. Statement means your hypothesis, no? Or your prediction. The main goal is this of any research. Now we talk about the statistical hypothesis again. There are two types of statistical hypothesis. One is the null hypothesis, second is the alternate hypothesis. Both are mutually exclusive and exhaustive. In case if the null hypothesis is accepted, alternate hypothesis will be rejected, and vice versa. Null hypotheses are denoted by H0, while the alternate hypothesis is denoted by HA or H1. There are two tail tests, or right tail test or left tail test we have. For the symbolic representation of null hypothesis, always suppose here we have mu is the population mean, or k is the sample mean. So the statement of our null hypothesis would be, it is a one sample test, something like that. So we say that there is no difference, there is no significant difference between population mean and sample mean. This is our null hypothesis. There is no significant difference between population mean and sample mean. It means population mean is equal to sample mean. So we are just symbolically we are writing mu is equal to k in the null hypothesis. It doesn't mean that they are exact equal. There may be a small difference. If this difference is significant, then the alternate hypothesis statement would be like this. There is significant difference between population mean and sample mean. Significant difference means they are not equal. This is in two-tail test. But in the right-tail test, the null hypothesis statement would be same. And alternate hypothesis statement will, symbolic representation will change. Okay, in the right-tail test, null hypothesis, symbolic representation would be same as the two-tail test. But our alternate hypothesis, symbolic representation, and alternate hypothesis statement would be changed. Mu is greater than k. It means the population, there is significant the population mean is greater than the sample mean. The population mean is the greater than the sample mean. And the null hypothesis statement, we could write that the population mean is equal to the sample mean. It means there is no significant difference in the population mean and the sample mean. When you are conducting this sort of test, you are using the one-tail test, either it may be right-tailed or the left-tailed. You mention in your research paper or the thesis alternate hypothesis statement. Generally, in default, we use the null hypothesis statement when we write the hypothesis. But in case of one-tail test, we use the alternate hypothesis statement. Understand? Is there any doubt? No, it doesn't mean that we are using this for the skewed model. It may be normal also. We could use the right tail and the left tail test for the normal model also. Normal distributed we have then also. Okay. Then we have both are mutually exclusive statement. If your null hypothesis accepted, alternate will reject. But when we write the statement in the hypothesis or the research paper, so what statement you have to write? Either you could write the null hypothesis statement, there is no significant difference between, or you could write that there is significant difference between. You have the two options. One, you could write the statement of null hypothesis, or you could write the statement of alternate hypothesis. So when we should prefer to write the statement of alternate hypothesis. In default, in general two-tailed test, we write the statement of null hypothesis statement. There is no significant difference. Does that make sense to you, Sally?
Yes, sir. Sir, that means like or.
I will show you one example. Getting this on screen?
Yes, sir.
I'll just show you.
Yeah.
I'll show you how to represent the result in the research paper and the thesis.
Okay, sir.
So this is the result. The descriptive analysis first we present with the graph or the table. Okay. This is the summary table. What we get, you already know that in R we get this 6-point summary.
Yeah.
And this is the histogram I prepared in the R. Agent frequency. It is a frequency. The histogram is always with the frequency. The bar plot with the percentage. So this is the histogram I have prepared. This is the bar plot with the percent you see here. Okay.
Okay, sir.
And little bit interpretation I have given rough here.
Yeah.
This is the descriptive first we have to write. Okay. After completing this descriptive, we find out the if there is a Likert type scale we have used somewhere. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Then we have to find out the reliability analysis. That is the reliability of the data, the 5-point or 6-point Likert type scale, whatever you have used. So these are the reliability 0.9 to it. It should be greater than 0.6 or the 0.7. Okay, there are two. So you see the inferential analysis, I will explain you. There would be a significant positive effect. You see, there is a positive effect of meditation on blood pressure in pregnant women. So I have not taken the null hypothesis here.
Yes, sir.
So HA_1. It is the alternate hypothesis I have taken because I am talking about the one-sided, one tail, positive fact. I am talking about the positive fact. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Here also positive. Here also positive. I will show you.
Negative.
The 3.1 is a null hypothesis. See here.
Yes, sir.
There would not be a significant difference on the degree of happiness in the pregnant woman in control group.
Okay.
So it is a
Null hypothesis.
not it. So it is a null hypothesis. It is a two-tail test.
Okay, sir.
There is no positive or negative. There is no direction. Understand? Here we have the we were talking about the positive fact.
Okay.
Here we are not talking about the positive and negative. There we are talking about the significant difference whether exists or not.
Yes, sir.
So this I am telling.
All right.
Anyone, if you write this, anyone you could write. If alternate is accepted, then null will reject. If the null is accepted, alternate will reject.
Yes, sir.
The statement doesn't matter over there.
All right, sir.
And then we use one graph. If required, then we write the whatever test we have taken, then we interpret it. The different tests we use. Sometimes there is the t-test here, pairwise, and in this way we present our data. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So this is a way to work. So got it? We are just changing the statement. The calculation technique, everything is same. Okay. Rejection and acceptance is same. Okay. Because sometimes you see in some research paper and some thesis, you see alternate hypothesis people write. Sometimes they use the null hypothesis statement. So people are generally see, then there is two-tail test you are conducting and you are using alternate hypothesis statement. That is not correct. If you are using the two-tail, then write the null hypothesis statement. Okay. So this is the same thing which I explained earlier. The same I have explained here again. And this is very important. This is very important. Types of error. That is, standard error is a different thing. I will tell you later about that. But here we are talking about the types of error. When we perform some hypothesis testing, what happens? I explain. This we have, suppose we have null hypothesis, we have assume, and we suppose it is a true. We could not measure whether it is true or false. Nobody knows our hypothesis is true or false. But by the way, we assume that it is true. Okay, we assume that it is true. And we test it with some statistical test. And our hypothesis has been accepted. Null hypothesis has been accepted and it is true. It is true. We assume it is true. Okay. And it is accepted. Then it is a right decision or wrong decision? Right decision. Your
Right,
hypothesis is true and has been accepted. Okay. If your null hypothesis is true and it has been rejected, it is a kind of error or not? It should be accepted, but it has been rejected. Okay, so it is a kind of error. So this error is called the type 1 error, or we say the alpha error. Alpha is nothing. Alpha is the level of significance. If you are conducting your testing your hypothesis at 95% confidence level, then alpha is 5%. That is the level of significance. Okay, that is the level of significance error. Suppose your null hypothesis is false. It is not true. Suppose it is false and it has been accepted. So it is a wrong decision. It is a wrong decision. It is also a type of error which is called the type 2 error, or it is also called the beta error. Beta error is related to the power of test. I will explain later on. And if your null hypothesis is false and it has been rejected, then it is a right decision. Your hypothesis was false and rejected. Okay, nice. So it is the right decision. So you understand this thing? We are getting two sort of error, alpha error and the beta error. I will explain you later on this. Okay, I will. Okay, I will explain you this thing. This is our normal curve and we think the population is normal. Okay. And this curve represent it is a basically density curve and represent the area of population. It present the whole population, probability, it is the probability and it shows the probability. And you know that the probability is maximum probability is 1. So the area of this curve is 1. Got it? If I draw a line here, so this line will divide this curve in two parts. And on the right side, you will get 0.5% probability and the left side also 0.5% probability. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Here, I am just taking only one side of the tail, but we are talking about the two tail. Okay, I will not mention the both side. I am just using the one side here. This is our scale of the test. The t test we are using, so it is the t scale. G test weight we are using, so it would be a G scale. Otherwise, the main scale is the X scale, whatever you have the value. We convert that scale in other form, and they convert the scale. So whatever the test we are taking, chi-square, so chi-square scale, and this way we convert that in another scale. Got it? And suppose we have at 5%. I am talking about the G scale first. And you could better understand the thing. In the G scale two-tail test, there is a value 1.96. 1.96 is the G value. It is the G value. Okay. Or G value is what? G value is G test value 1.96. G value is here. So G is the X minus X bar over standard deviation. So whatever the X value would be here in the X scale, whatever it may be anything. And the mean of that would be here x bar. We have to subtract it and divide it by standard deviation, whatever we have. So we get the G value. When we perform the G test, that is also like this, but there is a difference. We use the standard error. I will explain the standard error later on. Okay. Instead of standard deviation, we use the standard error. And this is our G value of the test G value. This is the test, or this is a scale. Got it? Difference in test and scale. Is there any doubt now? Okay.
So the scale is like fixed formula.
This is a fixed formula for G. We have a T, we have a different formula.
Okay.
So it is the 1.96. And the value which is greater than 1.9, if you get your G test value, if you calculate something and you get this value, G value, suppose 2.01. Understand? You get that value 2.01, which is more than 1.96. This point is at 5%. What? 5% confidence level. It is the 5% confidence interval we are getting for the G test. 1.96 is that value. And if your value, test value, is greater than 2.01, it means it will lie here somewhere, right side of this.
Yes, sir.
So this place we have from here to here, it is our acceptance region. What is it? Acceptance region of null hypothesis. Understand? So if our value is more than this, so our null hypothesis will be rejected. Or not? Suppose if your value comes only 1.5, so it is somewhere here. So it is accepted. It is in this segment.
Yes, sir.
This is about the class interval point of view. We have a two option. One is the traditional, the three traditional class interval in the p value. Here I am explaining first you with the class interval. So these are the interval at 5% here. Here minus 1.96. Got it? Okay. So whenever you get, yeah.
For the two-tailed test, it will be 2.5%.
What?
Website right side.
We are just searching about the significant difference. Difference may be negative or positive.
Sir, for two-tailed test.
Suppose your value is this much. Here, comes here. Or you are finding out the difference x minus x bar. X bar is greater than here. And x is smaller than here. X1 is here, suppose. So x1 minus x bar, what you get here? Some negative value? Or not? If your value is here, x2. So x2 minus x bar will be a positive value. So it is the two-tailed test. Difference may be negative or positive, but we don't consider the sign over there when we see the value. We just see the value. Got it? We could say we could take the modules in the two-tailed test. Got it? Now, according to p value, I explain you the area here, this area on the right side or this side here, it we have 0.05%, 0.05 area. 5% means 0.05 probability, p value. So here is this point is 0.05. This here the 0.05. Either if your p value is greater than 0.05, then it will lie here or not. It is less than this, then it will lie here. So if your p value is greater than 0.05, your null hypothesis accepted. It is just opposite of that. Here your value, test value in the G test is greater than 1.96, then rejected null hypothesis. Or your test value is smaller than 1.96, then accepted null hypothesis. Here it is just opposite of that. Sorry. If the p is greater than 0.05, then null hypothesis is accepted. Got it? Your p value is more than 0.05, then null hypothesis is accepted. If p value is smaller than 0.05, your null hypothesis is rejected. Means alternate hypothesis accepted. Does that make sense to everyone? Up to here.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now I'm talking about the alpha and the beta error now. I'm making this, don't take in another way. This graph by freehand I am making it. So suppose here you have that 5%. And here you have 1%. The area on the right side of this is 1%, 0.01. Or here it is 0.05. Got it? Okay. Is there any doubt? Are you getting it? The area on the right side of this line is 5% area, and area after this line, it is 1% area here. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Suppose you have a null hypothesis. You have taken some statement, and your null hypothesis has been rejected, and you got the p value, calculated p value. Just a moment. You got the, I changed the color so we could better understand. Calculated p value is 0.031. Got it? This p value we have got in calculation. Okay, we applied the test formula and we got this p value. This p value is less than 0.05 or not?
Yes.
So I just write here hypothetically that value is here somewhere between 0.01 and 0.05. It is greater than 0.01 and less than 0.05. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yes.
Okay. Now I will tell you that Vishnu, you pay your attention here. You asked me about these two errors. So at 95% confidence level, 95% confidence level means I have 5% level of significance. Alpha is 0.05. Does that make sense to you? Alpha is 0.05.
Yes.
At this level, my null hypothesis has been rejected with this value because it is here. My null hypothesis is accepted if my value is greater than 0.05. This is my acceptance reason. Got it? Okay. So at 95% confidence level, my null hypothesis has been rejected. But I am confident my hypothesis is true. I am assuming it. Nobody could say that this hypothesis is true or false. But I have more confidence. No, my hypothesis is true. Why it is giving me this sort of result? Why my hypothesis is true in spite of that it is rejecting? So you switched your 95% to your confidence level 99%. Got it? Is it clear? You increase your confidence level. It means your alpha decreases to 0.01. Now you are here. 1% level of significance. Got it? At this, this value is greater than 0.01. It is 0.01. It is greater than 0.01.
Yes, sir.
It means at 1% level of significance, your null hypothesis has been accepted. Got it? The null hypothesis has been accepted. Got it? Value is same. P value will not change. You have tested it. It will be constant when we have got it. And when we got it, it would be remain same. But your confidence level may change from 95% to 99%. Yeah.
Sir, may I ask one thing? This confidence level, how we decide it should be 95 or 99?
We have to decide prior.
By some calculation or by...
We could not use kitchen sink method here.
Okay.
We could not switch. So I will explain you where we have to take 95%, where we have to use the 99%.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
And it means, suppose your null hypothesis was true. Suppose. And was true and it has been rejected and you switch to 1% and it has been accepted, then it's okay, no problem. It was true and accepted, okay. Suppose your null hypothesis was false and at the 5% it was right that your value was less than 0.05 and it has been rejected because it was false. And in spite of that, you have shift to 1%. Okay. So it increases to create type 1 error. Chance of increases the type 1 error. If you reduce the alpha value from 0.05 to 0.01, it does it mean we increases the when our hypothesis is false and has been accepted. So when we reduce this value, we increase the chance. Okay. So it is very, very important to handle with care with this alpha level. Okay. there is no just like a proportionate relation, but the relation is there. When the alpha level increases, the beta will decrease, and the beta increase, the alpha will increase. So when you reduce this, when you shift here, the beta error increases. The your null hypothesis is you see in the table. Will you if you reduce this, the beta will increase. In spite of false, your null hypothesis is accepted. Got it? Beta error automatically will increase. Okay. I will explain in the late slide also. If alpha is probability of making type 1 error and is called the level of significance or the alpha level, alpha is the probability that you will reject the null hypothesis when it is true. It is the alpha when the null hypothesis when it is true. Or 1 minus alpha called the level of confidence. We know that beta is the probability of making a type 2 error. 1 minus beta is the power of test. We could not direct measure the power of test. So we have some sample size, alpha level, and the effect size, everything we have to measure, so many things. But that is not required in the research. When we create some test, like I introduce some new test, then it is required to test the power of test. So that is not compulsory for the researchers. And then who creates the test, new test, then we have to show the power of test, then it could be applied somewhere. Okay, so there is a different procedure to check the power of test. So what I am telling yet, so this is very important to select this alpha. So one general theory is what? In behavioral science, behavioral science means what? Psychology, social science, management studies, and some
Clinical trials.
Clinical trials, correct. So this all we include here. And the pure science, if we have the physics and chemistry or the mathematics. Mathematics. Okay, maths I write here. We require 99%. Here we require 95%. Got it? Okay.
Yes, sir.
That is the thing. One more thing. If you have a very small sample, we have very small sample, like 15, 20, like this. Then we have to apply 99%. Okay.
So why we apply 99 in small sample because of there is chance of most error.
Yeah, because that if you have a small sample, then suppose we have two group, control and experimental group. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And the experimental group, you see pre and post data. Okay. And the both you have pre and post after some duration, but the control group you have not given any therapy. Okay.
Okay.
But in the experimental group, you have given some therapy in that between period. But we check the pre and post both after that duration. Okay.
Yes.
If you have only 15, 16, 20 data samples.
Yes.
So you will not get so much variation. You will get the similarity over there. The sample size is very small. So at the
Okay.
5% level, you will not get, you will get the same result. You
Okay.
will get there is significant difference.
Mm-hmm.
Control group also in pre and post, and the your experimental group also.
Mm-hmm.
In the both the cases, you will get the same thing, same
Okay.
result at 95%.
Mm-hmm.
But at 99%, suppose you are getting in the control group 0.02,
Mm-hmm.
0.02 p value you are getting, and which is greater than 0.01,
Yes.
but is smaller than 0.05.
Yes.
It means at the 95%, your null hypothesis has been rejected for the control group also. It is showing that there
Mm-hmm.
is significant difference
Mm-hmm.
in the pre and post test in the control group. And in
Mm-hmm.
the experimental group, you get very negligible value, which is very near to 0. 0.00000 something.
Mm-hmm.
So it is very near to 0. It is less than 0.01.
Yes.
It is less than 0.01.
Mm-hmm.
So at 99%, it has been rejected.
Mm-hmm.
So 99% something is rejected. It means it is also rejecting at the 95% because of the right side. It is less than 0.01. Which value is
Yes.
less than 0.01? It is also less than 0.05.
Mm-hmm.
But in the control group, if you see, if we compare with the 5%, then the both value are less than 0.05. 0.02 is less than 0.05, and
Mm-hmm.
0.0001 is also less than 0.05.
Mm-hmm.
You are getting the similar result as per the
Okay.
test, demarcation,
Mm-hmm.
according to p value. So we switch to 99%.
Mm-hmm.
We switch to 99%. And the most of the thesis in the psychology, I have seen
Mm-hmm.
that thing.
Okay.
I have seen that thing. I will show you one interpretation in this thesis also. I will show you just a moment. I have somewhere I have mentioned that. You see here. The above table shows that the p-value is less than 0.05, means our null hypothesis is rejected at 95% of the confidence level. Okay. But p-value is greater than 0.01, means our null hypothesis is accepted at 99% of the confidence level.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is the control group.
Yes.
So we mentioned both things in the interpretation.
Okay.
We mentioned both things in the interpretation. So it means I have seen most of the cases, 99% of the cases.
Okay, sir.
So I recommend whenever you have a small sample size, you take
Yes.
99%.
Okay.
Okay. You should have more confidence because you are taking the small data size. It means you are more confident.
Yes, yes, sir.
Your confidence level should be high.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Why you are taking more large data set? Because your confidence level is low.
Okay.
Understand?
Yes, sir. Clear, sir.
That is the thing. Oh, sorry. Is there any doubt now? Okay.
No, sir.
Okay.
Now I will tell you some more thing. This I will explain you. I just explained earlier also. Beta is the probability of making type 2 error, and the 1 minus beta is known as the power of test. So if the alpha increases, beta decreases, vice versa, both are. And the beta decreases, 1 minus beta will also increase. It's the opposite of that beta. Beta lies between 0 and 1 also. Alpha lies between 0 and 1. So if your beta increases, alpha increases, beta decreases, and 1 minus beta. So if you decrease the alpha, what will happen? If you decrease the alpha, 1 minus beta will decrease or increase? Will decrease. I show you here. Just I'm writing here alpha, beta, and 1 minus beta. 1 minus beta and alpha both are the same direction, not the same thing. If I decrease the alpha, then what will happen with beta? Beta will increase, and then the beta increase, 1 minus beta will decrease. If you reduce the alpha value, the power of test also reduces. Power of test, it is what? It is the power of test. So if you reduce the alpha, the power of test decreases. Got it? So it is very compulsory to take the sufficient amount of sample. Sometimes it happens the few studies we didn't get the much more data samples, like a clinical trial in the psychology also. Sometimes we get very few data, very small data. Then that is our sometimes we get some constants over there. So then we have to work in that way. Got it? So
Yes, sir.
researchers can select the alpha level they wish to use. Common alpha levels include 0.05 and 0.01, these two. And these two I also explained you when we have to use the 5%, the 1%. Beta and power are controlled indirectly through the sample size, and the alpha level, the strength of treatment, effect size, amount of variability. So these all things impact on that, the power of test. Now we just a moment. We just do it. Choosing an alpha level. So I have explained it, the same thing I have written here. Alpha too large and you will commit to many type 1 error. Alpha is large is the 5% or the 10%. Then rejection region will increase on the right side region, on the left side region will increase, and the acceptance region will decrease. Okay, so acceptance region of null hypothesis will decrease means you could commit too many type 1 error. If alpha is too small and you will not have enough power to detect true effects when they exist. So that I explained you. It should be optimum. Some abuses in the statistical test. Some abuses mean that some deficiencies, some. It is not valid for all sets of data. Okay. Beware of searching for significance kitchen sink research, as I explained you. Don't shift from 95 to 99. Or we should not overlook the non-significance also. That is also very important. As well as significance, non-significance is also, null hypothesis is also very important. What is the meaning of statistical significance? I explain you. It does not mean that the effect is large, important, and meaningful. It may be very small difference effect. Okay, so don't assume that if the effect is very large. No, it does not tell how long that is. The observed result is unlikely to occur by chance alone. It doesn't mean that the result is occur by chance alone. No. It means that the observed effect are unlikely to due to chance. It means that observed effects are unlikely due to chance. It is not by chance. It means that the results are reliable and likely to be repeatable. Now I explain you. You perform some test and your null hypothesis has been accepted at 95% confidence level. It means if you perform the test on the various sample of the same population, no, you have taken the one sample. You take the various sample, 100 samples of the same population, and you perform the same test. It means 95%, 95 times out of 100, you will get the same result. And the 5 times it may change, opposite. Okay, got it? This I already explained you, acceptance and the rejection region. No, we could not write route alpha plus beta is equal to 1. No, we could not write that. Beta is totally, we measure the beta in a different way. Beta is not that P plus Q is equal to 1 is a different thing. Probability of success plus probability of failure is equal to 1. That is different thing. 110 test I have explained you. We'll see in the detail in our practical. We have so many normality tests. And the center limit theorem is that given random sampling, the sampling distribution of mean approaches a normal distribution as the size of sample increases. Even if the population distribution of the row scores is not normally distributed. The center limit theorem states that the sum of the large number of independent observations from the same distribution has been approximate normal distribution, and this approximation steadily improves as the number of observations increases. We can demonstrate this relatively easily with R. So I will show you a little bit here, then I will explain you tomorrow some more thing on the whiteboard. 1000 samples of size 3. So we are getting this sort of skewed. And when we have increased the size of the sample of the size 6, 1000 samples of size 6, we have increased the size. So we are getting in this way. And then we use 12 size. Each sample has a 12, and the 1000 samples we have taken. We are taking the density, not the frequency. Understand this thing. And here we are taking the 24. So we are getting in this way. So it will be normalized when we increase the sample size. Okay. That's the simple thing.
Sir,
Yeah, Alka, tell me.
for normalization, when we increase the numbers, like out of 1000, the center number is increased.
No.
It's not more.
What we are increasing the we are taking 1000 samples.
Yes.
The sample size is 3. The each sample we are selecting only three respondents.
Okay.
Okay, then we are getting this, and then we are selecting. That's the simple theory.
Okay.
If you have a small sample size, it may be biased somewhere. It may be skewed.
Understand.
If you increase the sample size, you go near to the population, it will be normal.
Okay, sir.
Mostly we assume that the population is normally distributed.
Okay, sir. Clear now.
Okay, that is the thing.
Yes.
I will explain you tomorrow with some example. Okay, on the whiteboard, I will explain you tomorrow 2 things. One is the standard error.
Yes.
And second one is this center limit theorem. I will clear this concept. Okay. Test of normality. It doesn't mean that if you are taking an exponential distribution sample, you are taking an exponential distribution, okay, or the Poisson distribution, whatever other, which is not normal. It doesn't mean that if you increase the size, it will convert in normal. No, it will not convert in normal. Okay. There is a different thing. The central limit theorem is not that. So there is too much confusion in the people about the central limit theorem and the standard error. So I will explain both things tomorrow. It will take the long time. Shelly, you please log out and log in again. Screen is visible to everyone.
Yes, sir, it's visible. Sir,
Yes,
I thought
sir.
the questions you are discussing maybe
Yes,
that.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, are you getting now? Okay. So Shelly, please log out and log in. You will get the screen.
All right, sir.
Now, you see, when the null hypothesis is not rejected, it has been accepted. Null hypothesis is accepted. It does not, we do not accept it is true. It doesn't mean that it is true. There is merely not enough evidence to say that it is false. Okay, that is that mean. Consider the jury trial analogy. We don't find people innocent, only guilty and not guilty. Judge, jury, don't say that the people is innocent. He has not done any crime. It only say that only guilty or not guilty. If someone is found not guilty, it does not mean that they were proved innocent. It only means that there is not enough evidence to reach a guilty verdict. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Or we conclude the alternate hypothesis when we reject the null. So we conclude the alternate hypothesis is accepted because the data clearly support that conclusion. Okay. So this is a way of describing the results. Now the very, very important thing, that is the parametric and non-parametric test. The many people confused always with this. When we have to use the parametric test, when we have to use the non-parametric test. So there are many criterias we consider when select the test. First, we see the what is parametric test. If the information of population is completely, if the information of population is completely known by means of its parameters, then statistical test is called parametric test. This is the definition of parametric test. If you know the population parameter means population mean, population standard deviation, whatever the parameter, the few parameters you know about the population. Okay. Non-parametric, if there is no knowledge about the population or parameter, we don't know the way from which population it is and what are the parameters of the population, but still is required to test the hypothesis of the population. Then statistical test is called non-parametric test. Okay. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Second thing, we use G test, T test, F test, ANOVA, chi-square test in parametric test. And in non-parametric test, again we use chi-square test, Mann-Whitney test, rank sum test, Kruskal-Wallis test, Duncan test, etc. There are so many other non-parametric tests we have. There are lots, so many. Chi-square test is included in both. Okay, chi-square test in the parametric and the chi-square test in non-parametric. Because the chi-square test, we have three chi-square test: the association and the test of independence and the goodness of fit. And when we talk about the test of independence, or sorry, goodness of fit, so then we could use the parametric test in the parametric test. And test of independence, when we are talking about, because it is based on the frequency, test of independence. That is not based on the value. So we may consider the both side, parametric and non-parametric. So the chi-square test we apply on the both side, the parametric and the non-parametric. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
And parametric test always use group mean. Whatever the mean of the variable, we use that. But a non-parametric test is used group median, not the group mean. So I always tell that if your sample, or you don't have any idea about the population, if population is normal or not, and your sample is skewed, you follow the non-parametric test. Understand? Because it is based on the median. If your sample is normal, then you could apply the parametric test. Got it? Is there any doubt? See the histogram of this. Yeah.
Sir, can we perform both parametric and non-parametric simultaneously?
No. That would be wrong. So these are the main thing. You have to select the test first, the parametric or non-parametric. Then we decide the which test we have to use out of this.
How to decide, sir?
Somebody, just a moment. Rajendram ji asking, after removing outliers, it is normal. No. If you remove the outliers in the skewed, it would be skewed again. It will not be a normal, basically. It will not be as normal as B. When we use this, when we remove these outliers, you remove the outliers if you know the population distribution is normal. Then you remove the outliers. No? If your population is not normal, then what you would do? Then it is skewed already. We don't know. We don't have any idea about the population. We shift to the non-parametric test. Otherwise, you could change the population. You could always remove the outliers and make it what we say normal. So I will explain you that we could not convert removing the outliers. We could not convert the data in a normal form if it is skewed. In the skewed, we have a different formula. No? We don't have that formula, mean plus minus 3 standard deviation. We have the different formula. If it's the right tail, then we have a formula Q3 plus 1.5 IQR. It just remove that point. It will not decrease the whisker. It will just remove the point above the whisker. So I will explain you this later on. Okay, Rajendram. And specific assumptions are made regarding population. It again the same thing, the normal population. Applicable only on variable. This statement is written, but sometimes we also use the attributes. I will show you later on. We also use the attributes. We see the number and we could count it. We see the proportion and we could calculate the G test also. Yeah, that's also. Samples are independent. Samples must be, if you are performing the test between two samples, the sample must be independent. But if we talk about in the non-parametric, not necessarily the samples are independent. So I will explain you what is the independent sample. Suppose there are two sections of the class 10, standard 10 in a school, and we want to test the mean marks of the mathematics of the both sections students, whether there is significant difference in the marks of the mathematics of the students or not. Okay. So the students who will sit in a section A will not sit in the section B, not possible. The student will sit only in one section for the math test, for the math subject. Does that make sense to everyone? So this sample is an independent sample. The samples are independent. But if we are comparing the marks of mathematics and commerce, the subject is different. Know that. Subject is different, maths and commerce. Some students have taken maths and accounts, I would say. Some students are taken admission commerce with maths. They are also studying the accounts with mathematics. So they are also giving the paper of mathematics and also giving the paper of commerce. Got it? Both paper they will perform. But the students who are only in the mathematics, they will perform only the mathematics paper. They will not perform the commerce accounts paper. And the persons who are only, the students who are only in the commerce part, they are not taking part in the mathematics. So they will only give the commerce paper, accounts paper only. So there are few students which are having the both maths and commerce. So this is not an independent samples. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Chi-square test because parametric test because it is based on the frequency. It is not based on the values at the goodness of fit. So it is a parametric and non-parametric both. Assume normal distribution, no assume safe distribution. And this I action. In the parametric test, as we have read in the first day, handles interval and the ratio data. No, scale data, it handles the scale data. But the non-parametric test handles the ordinal data, nominal data, categorical, interval, ratio, rank data. Every sort of data you could perform the non-parametric test. Okay. Result can be significantly affected by outliers in the parametric test because it is based on the mean, or mean is very sensitive to outliers. We have read it. In the non-parametric test, result cannot be significantly affected by outlier because it is based on the group median. Median will not affected by the outliers, as we have seen earlier in the first session. Parametric tests perform well when spread of each group is different. Spread, you know that measure of dispersion we have studied. The range or the IQR or the standard deviation. Standard deviation is a scatterness, but we could here use as a spread. I have not written both things. Perform well when spread of each group is different, might not provide valid result if groups have the same spreadness. If the group has the same deviation, same variability or the same deviation, then we could not perform when we are performing in between two samples. Their spreadness should be different. Okay.
Sir,
Hmm.
sir, can you give one example of this spread of each group?
Spread means the both standard deviation should be different. The section A and section B students mean marks, we see that the 52 and the B section is 65. And the SD is same. Spreadness is same. Standard deviation is same in the both the cases. Then it will not perform in a good way. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So that is very important to see the variance equality. Non-parametric test perform well when spread of each group is same. It is just opposite of that. Might not provide valid result if the groups have the different spread. So you see, there is not only one thing that if you have a parameter, you have a population parameter, you will use the parametric test. No, there are some other thing also we have to consider when we have to choose the test, like the spreadness, like the scale. And the previous I have told you, and the parametric test has more statistical power, but non-parametric test is not a much statistical power like parametric test. Parametric test is powerful than non-parametric test. It means what we consider when we have a two sample t-test, one sample t-test, we should have the sample size greater than 20, minimum greater than 20. One sample t-test if you are performing. If you are performing the two sample t-test, then the each group have more than 15. More than 15. Okay. One way ANOVA, if you are performing for 2 to 9 groups, more than 15 respondents should be there. For 10 to 12, there should be greater than 20. Factorial design of experiment with one factor and the one blocking variable. It should be. I will discuss on this later. One sample sign or one sample Wilcox test we use instead of one sample t-test in the non-parametric form. Two sample test we use the Mann-Whitney test, and the ANOVA we use the Kruskal values or the Moore's median test we perform. Yeah, it can be vary. It can be vary in the groups. And there is a Friedman test in the DOE. Yeah, we will study this all test. Okay. There I have given few things, raw discrete data, and this all I have the data classification that we have studied. Ordinal scale I have given. Now the Likert type versus Likert scales. So I will explain you. Likert type scale, you know that as I explained you, the uh, agreeness scale, the strongly disagree in this way. The some other scales also 3 point, 4 point, 5 points. Here we are talking about the 5 points. You could use any one. These are the item we are getting the response from 1 to 5, 1 2 3 4 5. These are the responses we are getting. If we are comparing this item and this item in some test, then we have to perform the non-parametric test, because these are the Likert type scale both. These are the ordinal data. And the center tendency would be median or mode, and the dispersion range quartile, and association interval tau B or C. And non-parametric test chi-square, Mann Whitney, Wilcox, Kruskal values, etc. This test we could perform on this sort of data. But if you are taking the score of these 4 questions, 4 items, you are taking the mean score, you are taking the sum score also. It depends what score you are going to take. Suppose these are one factor, and these 4 questions belong to one factor. So we will find out the score, and that we find out as a mean, suppose. Just a moment. This is the mean score. Here, suppose somebody has says 5, here 1, here 2, here 2. So what we are getting, 5, 6, or 4, 10. 10 divided by 4, 2.5 score I will get here. Got it? I will get the mean of this.
Sir, excuse me, items means the population.
What?
Item 1, 2 means that the population 1, 2, 3.
No, these are the questions in your question survey form.
Okay, sir.
You are asking some questions in a 5-point Likert scale. Got it?
Okay, sir.
Or they are responding, the strongly disagree, not certain, not certain, agree, and strongly agree. So for the 1, we have strongly disagree. For 2, they are putting for the disagree. For 3, they are not certain. And for 4, they are suppose agree. And 5th, they are strongly agree. Does that make sense to you now?
Yes, sir. Like hedonic scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the respondent's response for the first response, respondent response in this way, all the 4 questions. Second respondent in this way. And we find out 7, here also 10, 2.5. Here we get 5, 4, 3, 4. And we get 5, 3, 8, 8, 16 divided by 4, it is 4. In this way, we are getting these terms. 3.6, 4.9, 1.2, like in this way. Got it? When you do this, so now it is an interval scale. It is called a Likert scale. This is not called this is a Likert type scale. This one is Likert type scale. But this is a Likert scale, it is an interval scale now. The center tendency would be mean, standard deviation would be the dispersion, association would be the Pearson R, parametric test, t-test, regression, whatever parametric test you could apply. Does that make sense to you? What is the difference between when you take the score, then you could use the parametric test here. Okay. Now, what happens? Suppose you have to consider this also. What would be the 2.5? It is a strongly disagree, not certain. What we could give it. So one traditional method was there. It was not which was basically the unscientific totally. It shows that the mean between 0.01 to 1 is strongly disagree. So if you have a number from 1 to 5, so how it is possible to get mean between below 1? Can you get the mean below 1? The data belongs range from 1 to 5. Can we get the mean less than 1?
No, sir.
So this traditional method is totally unscientific, and the most of the people have used in their research paper worldwide. So there was these objections. Nobody could get this mean between 0.01 to 1. 1 may be possible. If all the respondents give 1, 1, 1, 1, then the 1 would be mean, but not less than 1. And from 1 point, so we say it is strongly disagree, it is disagree, neutral, agree, and strongly agree. Yeah. There is another method, which is range max method. How it is calculated? So you see the maximum value minus minimum value, that is the range we get here. If you have the 7.7 minus 1, that would be 6. Here is 5.5 minus 1 is 4. And then we divide this range by maximum value. So this range is 4. 4 divided by 5. 5 is the maximum value. We get 0.80 here. So what we do, these are the lower limit 1. We have the minimum value, this one. We add 0.80 to this 1. So we get 1.80, which is the upper limit of first class, which is a strongly disagree. If your mean score value lies between 1 to 1.80, it will be a strongly disagree. If it is between, then again we add 0.80. So we get 2.60 for the upper limit for the second class. Then again we get add 0.80. We get 3.4, then 0.8, 4.2, then 0.85. Got it? And here 1.80, 1.81 to 2.60, or we could write that the 1.80 also here. So it will include it. So in this way, strongly disagree, not certain, agree, and strongly agree. So here I will explain you that what will happen. 2.5 lies where? Disagree. So it is a disagree. 2.5 here also disagree. 4 lies between 3.41 and 4.40, that is agree. 3.6 also agree. 4.9, it is strongly agree. And 1.2, which is strongly disagree. Does that make sense to everyone?
So that is the traditional method, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we have to create a bar plot of this, we could create in this way. We could assign them. This is the disagree, this strongly disagree, and this way.
Sir, how to interpret in the range max method for this data, sir, illustration data?
How to interpret?
Sir, like it's 2.5.
2.5 lies between 1.81 and 2.60. Getting here, sir?
Directly use this statement.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there is disagree.
Yeah.
So we are writing the D, disagree.
Yes, sir.
It is scientific. You see, we are getting the all thing and there is the same gap between them. 1.80 and you get the same difference, 0.8, 0.8, 0.8. Same interval is between them. So now it is being used. So I think this is sufficient for today.
So that the item 1 and 2 should satisfy every other qualities other than the testing parameter.
Item 1 and 2.
Should satisfy every, I mean the other than the testing parameter, other should be same.
Now item 1 and 2 are the Likert type scale basically. They are.
Okay, sir.
So Likert type scale means we could apply only the non-parametric test. I could not understand what you asked about.
So there's a qualitative test to
Qualitative test you are talking about. Hi, that is a qualitative test.
Okay. Sir.
That is a Likert type scale is a qualitative test, correct?
Sir,
Yeah.
so we are using correlation coefficient as parametric or non-parametric?
Correlation coefficient test. That is a parametric test.
Okay, sir.
Correlation test we will perform. We perform the correlation test with t-test. Okay. We have a t-test for the correlation. Okay. So we perform tomorrow this test. Anyone
Okay,
else?
sir.
Padmaji, are you there? Yes, madam. Have you got today? Today you are late? Okay, your mic is not on. Yeah.
Today a little late I came.
Okay.
I think 10 minutes late.
10 minutes late. Okay. No problem. So you would have the recording of this. Don't worry. You could see if something remains, and tomorrow we cover very important things like the standard error. What is the standard error? And we also see one more important thing, that is the center limit theorem about the.
Okay.
Two things we discuss on that. And yes, today we have covered the Likert type scale and this all. So that is very essential, and I will share this PPT and everything. So you would go through it. There are so many things. Every test I have given in detail.
I have seen there. Kolmogorov's Monod test, that also you have given.
Okay.
Normality test. Normality test and all you have given. I have seen.
Okay. Nice. Thanks. So okay. Tomorrow we'll discuss on all. And now, Mr. Mukesh, are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sir, it's over to you, sir.
Yeah. We are done for today. All of you, please join tomorrow. Tomorrow will be last session of this workshop.
No, sir. Day after tomorrow, I think it.
The day after tomorrow.
Because the one day was gap there.
Okay.
So Sunday we will have class.
No. The tomorrow, Sunday we will have. I think.
We'll have.
If tomorrow it not cover.
Okay.
Then we'll take the Sunday. Otherwise, I will try to finish tomorrow.
Okay.
Saturday.
Will be the timing for the class?
Same time.
Sir, you explain about the next batch of the R3 to these persons.
Yes. R3 is starting on Monday. All of you. Till now, whatever we have done, it is just like trailer. Now the real picture is coming, R3 and R4 advanced. So if you want to enjoy the real show, join from Monday. Monday 7 to 9 p.m. Same time slot given. What you are using right now, it will be same time slot for the Monday. So join that program. Don't miss it at all. And that program is closed, so don't think that anybody can enter without payment. You have to book your seat first, and then you get in. Right?
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, what will be the last date
Last date of what?
for our advance, sir?
Uh,
For paying payment.
Payment is like you do it today, tomorrow, whenever you feel comfortable, right? Because Monday it's starting, so I think as soon as you can do it till Sunday, you do it, complete it.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Anyone has any question? Okay. So let's end this session, and I'm really waiting to see all of you in real picture. Till now, the trailer has been done. The real movie is starting on Monday, so all of you join. All right? Yes or no? If
Yes, sir.
yes, yes. Okay, okay, okay.
Okay,
So
thanks.
somebody is scared that what will happen in R3. Don't worry. Nobody will do anything wrong. It is something very exciting. Why I'm telling you? Because the real knowledge will be there. You will be in the depth then. You will be have a next level of understanding on R data science. And because if you want to be data scientist, you have to jump into the well, and then you will be able to understand, right? So it's a depth. Now you as much depth you go in C, you get the right things, right? So make sure that don't miss this chance. Just join it on Monday. That is what I can recommend all of you. So see you tomorrow again. Take care for now. And those who want to get the R2 certificate, those who have still not paid for that, can pay it by tomorrow. That is final date of the payment of this workshop. Who is looking for certificate? Because there's a few participants here who is in free. So if you want to get the certificate, you can get that done by tomorrow, so that we can issue certificate on Sunday for you. All right. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening. Bye bye for now.
Thanks,
Thank you, sir.
everyone.
Bye.
Good night, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you. Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night. Thank you. Thank
Good
you.
night.
Bye bye.